So when we left off, we were discussing the administrative headaches that were happening in French Guiana. And in that vein, it's actually something that went back to before the time of Guyana being a convict colony. When you look at the history of slavery in the same region, the French authorities had a hard time enforcing the slaves to stay on the plantations. There's several accounts of slaves just leaving with little to no pursuit. And we see a similar pattern happen when the primary labor is done by the convicts, which is that the guards at the time are afraid of going into certain regions of the camp because of the large number of convicts. So they're overwhelmed and outnumbered. We also see that there were some problems with the guards actually assisting certain prisoners with escaping. So it was a very unorganized and and dysfunctional government that was running things at the time. On top of that, you have conflicts between the local and the regional leadership. So there's headaches that the governors of the region have to resolve between two different parties in the government. There's a very poor managing of the region. And so as a result, we see an expanded bureaucracy where more leadership positions are established, more offices and more administrations are created, and that's hoped to help resolve whatever the problems are. But then, moving on from the French experience, we see in the British experience that you have to start first with the British Empire that existed across the globe, and that's really important to understanding what's happening on Australia specifically, because the British had control of territories on various continents, and that means that in Canada, Hong Kong, Jamaica, Ireland, and other parts of the world, Britain is able to take prisoners and ship them all into one centralized location, like in Australia. And so that's what we see happen in the years between 1788 and 1868. That by the time we get to 1868, Great Britain has sent 167,000 convict men, women, and children to Australia. And these people are from various parts of Africa and Asia. They're from Canada. A lot of them are from Ireland and England. But the point is, we see that there's various groups of people from different continents that are controlled by Britain, and they're all brought onto one continent. So this creates a very big mixture of different cultures all in one place. So we see this pattern of globalization where Britain's control of various different places is all brought into one centralized location, and that has cultural ramifications as well. But noting now we can note some of the differences between the French and the British experience with penal colonization. And what we see is that whereas in French Guiana it was largely a male population in the region, that's a little different in Australia. In Australia, there was a big emphasis on bringing women and children as well to the colony because of the importance on settling the region. So along with the importation of women and children, you also have the fact that Australia is kind of a melting pot of cultures. You have people from a lot of Indian prisoners, a lot of people from Hong Kong, from Ireland, from England, from Canada, from Jamaica, even, and other parts of Africa as well. So it's a very heterogeneous environment, culturally speaking, there. So those are some of the differences between French Guiana and Australia as penal colonies. But there are also some notable similarities, and that would be that the purpose for both of them was to manage particular populations. Britain in her colonies and in her mainland had certain groups of people that they wanted to control. And at the same time, they were able to meet that need of controlling problematic groups of people. They were also able to expand their empire into the southeastern region of the globe. So they were able to meet that need. And as well, we also see that France and Great Britain were trying to fulfill this desire for regional and economic influence wherever they were going to settle. So now we get to talk about whether or not any of this actually worked. When we look at the French experience in Guyana, this is actually a quote from an entrepreneur at the time referring to what happened there. He says, "As to the economic situation in general, there is hardly any agriculture, industry, or commerce in Guyana. The only thing that penal colonization has ever produced is illness, epidemics, and the mortality of the transportes." And after this, we actually see that in a few years after this quote was stated, that the nature